Only a handful of AFL trades end up being blockbuster ones. Dangerfield to Geelong, Judd to Carlton, and Lockett to Sydney are some of the biggest ones in AFL history. The players when they were traded were in their prime and had big impacts at their clubs. But there are a set of players whose names are just as well known in the football world that were traded at some point in their careers that you may have completely forgotten about. In most instances, it was either at the starting point or nearing the end of their careers. Hawthorn had two champions in the making and traded away both of them. The most recent was Josh Kennedy. Everyone remembers him as a Sydney Swan great. His 277 games, 3 best and fairest and premiership win, places him as one of their best players. But he began his career at the Hawks, following in his family's footsteps. In the 2006 draft, he was picked up as a father-son player. He played no AFL games in 2007, 3 in 2008, and then 10 in 2009, where he nearly averaged 20 disposals per game. But the family line of John Kennedy Sr., his son John Kennedy Jr., and then Josh would end there. Kennedy was traded to Sydney in exchange for Ben McGlynn and picks 39, 46 and 70. 9 of the next 10 seasons would see Kennedy play at least 23 games every year, reach 3 grand finals and make the All-Australian team 3 times. The 2012 grand final win saw Sydney beat Hawthorn, and one of the moments of the day was when Josh walked over to the Hawthorn area and embraced his grandfather, who was consoling some of the Hawthorn players. One of the most pivotal transfers in VFL-AFL history was completed in 1983. With Jeff and Kevin Ablett playing for Hawthorn in 1980, their brother, who was a little-known country footballer in Gary Ablett, was invited to do a pre-season with Hawthorn's reserve side. On a reserve contract, Ablett Sr. played 6 games in the seconds in 1980, but decided to return home to Drouin at the end of the year. He would return to Hawthorn in 1982, playing 6 VFL games, but then moved to Myrtleford to get out of the city lifestyle. He played locally in the Ovens and Murray Football League for the 1983 season, and with some persuasion, he committed to try the VFL one more time for Geelong, with the more rural area fitting him. At the time, Geelong would pay a $60,000 transfer fee and signed Ablett to a 1-year contract. He would end up becoming one of the league's greatest ever players. He kicked 1,021 goals for Geelong, won 3 Coleman medals and made 4 grand finals. Unlike Kennedy, he would lose to Hawthorn in the 1989 grand final, although he did his part, kicking a grand final record 9 goals and winning the Norm Smith medal in a losing side. Before the mass exodus of players that left the Gold Coast Suns and GWS Giants, it was the Brisbane Lions in the space of 2 off-seasons that lost 3 future stars of the competition. Firstly, in 2013, Sam Docherty and Elliot Yeo were 2 members of the labelled Go Home 5, which were players drafted in 2010 and 2011 that departed the club in the 2013 off-season. Docherty, who was picked 12 in the 2011 draft, played 13 games in his second season, but with Michael Voss getting sacked and the club in overall poor shape, he decided to leave. At this time, drafted players only had 2-year contracts as well, and it's a big reason why Brisbane had little leverage and lost these players. He picked Carlton as his new home and went there for pick 33, a selection 21 spots lower than where he was originally taken. Elliot Yeo was taken at pick 30 in the same draft and played 27 games during his 2 seasons. A similar story to Docherty's applies. Yeo grew up playing for East Fremantle and was out of contract after 2013 and requested a trade back to Western Australia. He was traded to West Coast for pick 28. The final of the trio that left was Jack Crisp the following off-season. Unlike the other 2, he was a rookie pickup in 2012 and did spend 3 seasons at Brisbane. He played 10 games in his first year, but just a combined 8 in 2013 and 2014. His exit to Collingwood came in part because of Dane Beams wanting to move to Brisbane. He was a part of that deal, along with picks 5 and 25 that headed to Collingwood in exchange for Beams. It's noteworthy that pick 5 ended up being Jordan De Goey. All three players have played at least 150 games for their current clubs. Yo and Crisp are best and fairest and premiership winners, while Doherty co-captained Carlton from 2019 to 2021. One of the most iconic plays in the 90s was Adelaide's Tony Modra. He came to the Crows as a 22-year-old and in his second AFL season kicked 129 goals, captivating the competition with his marking ability. In total, he played 118 games and kicked 440 goals for Adelaide and won a Coleman medal in 1997. But his career at the Crows was one of what-ifs. The Coleman medal season saw him do his ACL in the preliminary final. He, alongside Mark Ricciuto, would miss out on the 97 premiership. Modra would return in 10 months but couldn't regain form, kicking 19 goals in 8 games, and Adelaide coach Malcolm Blight made the ruthless call of omitting him for the 1998 grand final. Modra didn't even get an invite to go to the game, as the Crows would go on to win back-to-back flags. But a late career move would see Modra blossom. He was traded to Fremantle in the 1998 off-season for picks 29 and 34, where he would play for 3 more seasons into his 30s. In 1999, he kicked a then club record 71 goals, which would be topped by Matthew Pavlich in 2007 with 72, and followed that year up with another 50 goals in 2000. Bad knees eventually forced him to retire at the end of 2001 after 47 games and 148 goals for Fremantle. Surprisingly, defender Josh Gibson won 2 best and fairest in the Hawthorn three-peat run and was named an All-Australian in 2015. He was a key part of Hawthorn's best teams in the modern era, but he actually started his career with North Melbourne and was 25 when he made the switch to Hawthorn. It was 2008, his 3rd year at North Melbourne, when Gibson became a regular starter. He played 20 games that year and then all 22 in 2009, averaging 17 disposals per game and 5 marks. However, he was often deployed as a tagger and not as a defender. It was at the end of that season he requested a trade to Hawthorn, who clearly saw he was just hitting his football peak and saw his best position down back. Gibson, along with pick 69, headed to Hawthorn for picks 25 and 41 in one of the bargain trades of the late 2000s. Gibson would end up playing 160 AFL games for Hawthorn and retired at 33 at the end of the 2017 season.